Welcome back to our channel on this spectacular day. We are absolutely thrilled to bring you the most intense, in-depth analysis of the explosive corporate drama currently shaking the foundations of Los Angeles. The battle lines have been drawn, the stakes have never been higher, and the fashion world is watching with bated breath. Let's dive right into the heart of the conflict. The atmosphere in Los Angeles has reached a boiling point, and the epicenter of this escalating corporate warfare is no longer confined to the boardroom of Forrester Creations. The return of internationally renowned French celebrity Fanny Grayson has sent shockwaves through the fashion industry, acting as the ultimate catalyst in the bitter, high-stakes rivalry between the established Forrester empire and the aggressively expanding Logan brand. Fanny is not just a celebrity. She is a global icon, a tastemaker whose mere association with a fragrance line guarantees millions in international revenue. Her arrival in the city was meant to be a closely guarded secret, but in a town where power and gossip are the primary currencies, secrets rarely stay buried for long. Steffy Forrester Finnegan, the fiercely protective and notoriously stubborn co-CEO of Forrester Creations, is a woman who prides herself on her predatory business instincts. When the whispers of Fanny Grayson's presence reached her ears, Steffy did not hesitate. Driven by an insatiable need to maintain Forrester's absolute dominance and to crush any potential threats before they could materialize, she immediately formulated a plan. Steffy knew the history. She knew that Fanny's previous signature perfume line had been unceremoniously dropped by Hope Logan Spencer and Carter Walton in favor of Daphne Rose Walton. In Steffy's mind, this historical grievance was the perfect leverage. She intended to sweep into Fanny's hotel suite, offer a lucrative, exclusive collaboration with Forrester Creations, and secure a massive international partnership that would simultaneously humiliate the upstart Logan brand. Armed with her signature confidence and an unwavering belief in the invincibility of the Forrester name, Steffy made her way to the opulent penthouse suite where the French icon was residing. She expected a straightforward negotiation, anticipating that Fanny would be eager to align herself with the undisputed kings of Los Angeles fashion. Steffy's strategy was clear. She would play the role of the benevolent industry titan, offering Fanny a triumphant return to the spotlight while subtly reminding her of the disrespect she had suffered at the hands of Hope Logan. It was a calculated, ruthless move, perfectly aligned with Steffy's recent pattern of condescending leadership. However, the universe had a vastly different, profoundly humiliating plan in store for the Forrester CEO. When the heavy mahogany doors of the penthouse suite swung open, Steffy's confident stride faltered. The luxurious room, scented with expensive floral arrangements and the faint aroma of espresso, was not empty save for the French celebrity. Sitting across from Fanny Grayson, engaged in a deep, earnest conversation, was none other than Hope Logan Spencer. The sheer psychological whiplash of this discovery hit Steffy like a physical blow. The woman she had marginalized, dismissed, and driven out of Forrester Creations was not cowering in defeat. She was actively, aggressively poaching a major international player right out from under Steffy's nose. The visual contrast between the two stepsisters in that moment was stark and heavily laden with dramatic tension. Steffy stood in the doorway, a vision of sharp, tailored authority, her face flushed with a volatile mixture of shock and immediate, defensive rage. Hope, on the other hand, sat with a newfound posture of liberated defiance. Unburdened by the suffocating constraints of Steffy's oppressive regime, Hope radiated a quiet, determined strength. She was no longer the meek employee begging for a relaunch date for her stalled fashion line. She was a fierce competitor, fighting tooth and nail for her own legacy under the banner of Katie Logan Spencer's new fashion house. Recovering from her initial paralysis, Steffy immediately went on the offensive, her survival instincts kicking in. She stepped into the room, her designer heels clicking sharply against the marble floor, and unleashed a venomous verbal assault designed to completely undermine Hope's credibility. Steffy intentionally and maliciously dragged the painful past into the light, weaponizing the history between Hope and Fanny. She reminded the French celebrity, with dripping condescension, that it was Hope who had callously fired her, discarding her signature fragrance to make room for Daphne Rose Walton. Steffy painted Hope as disloyal, erratic, and fundamentally untrustworthy, attempting to drive an insurmountable wedge between the two women before Hope could even finish her pitch. But Steffy did not stop at attacking Hope's professional history. She turned her sights on the Logan brand itself. With a sneer that perfectly encapsulated her arrogant entitlement, Steffy mocked Katie and Bill Spencer's new venture. She viciously characterized the Logan fashion house as a desperate recycling bin, a pathetic establishment that merely picks up the discarded trash that Forster Creations throws away. It was a brutal, calculated insult, meant to diminish not only Hope's current efforts, but also to insult Fanny by implication, suggesting that joining Logan would be a massive downgrade for someone of her elite stature. Steffy's words were designed to reassert the absolute hegemony of the Forster name, demanding that Fanny recognize the inherent superiority of Steffy's offer. Despite the ferocity of Steffy's attack, Hope did not crumble. The months of enduring Steffy's toxic, dismissive treatment at Forster Creations had hardened her, forging an ironclad resilience within her spirit. Hope stood her ground, refusing to let Steffy rewrite the narrative. While she could not erase the past, Hope leaned into the present. She did not offer pathetic apologies or cower behind excuses. Instead, she presented Fanny with a vision of the future. Hope pitched the Logan brand as a place of limitless creative freedom, a hungry, ambitious empire that valued true partnership over corporate dictatorship. She laid her cards on the table, acknowledging her past mistakes, but highlighting her current determination to build something revolutionary alongside Deke Sharp and Katie Logan Spencer. Throughout this intense, emotionally charged power struggle, Fanny Grayson sat observing the two American heiresses with a cold, calculated gaze. The French celebrity is a woman who has navigated the treacherous waters of the global fashion industry for decades. She is immune to empty flattery and highly allergic to unearned arrogance. Fanny listened to Steffy's entitled, condescending pitch, noting the way the Forster CEO seemed to demand compliance rather than invite collaboration. She then listened to Hope's desperate but undeniably bold presentation. Fanny recognized the immense risk Hope was taking, the sheer bravery required to step out of the Forster shadow and challenge the reigning monarchs of Los Angeles fashion on their own turf. When Fanny finally spoke, the temperature in the room seemed to drop by several degrees. Her voice was smooth, elegant, and devastatingly precise. Rather than falling for Steffy's manipulative tactics or holding a grudge against Hope for the past, Fanny delivered a crushing, paradigm-shifting verdict. With a cool, dismissive glance toward the Forster CEO, Fanny coldly implied that she found Steffy's condescending, dictatorial attitude entirely unappealing. In a stunning reversal of expectations, the international icon declared that she actually appreciated Hope's audacity. Fanny respected the fire, the hustle, and the sheer nerve it took for Hope to walk into that hotel room and pitch a collaboration despite their rocky history. To Fanny, Hope's willingness to fight for her vision was far more impressive than Steffy's expectation that the Forster name would simply command obedience. The moment those words left Fanny's lips, the illusion of Steffy's absolute power shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces. The humiliation that washed over Steffy was profound and agonizingly visible. Her carefully constructed facade of invincibility crumbled, leaving behind a stark, terrifying realization. Her power was no longer absolute. The Forster name, while still legendary, was no longer a magic spell that could force the entire industry to bow at her feet. She had walked into that penthouse suite expecting to conquer an international partner and humiliate a rival. Instead, she was the one being dismissed, dressed down by a global icon in front of the very woman she had spent months trying to marginalize. This encounter represents a massive, catastrophic blow to Steffy Forster's ego. For years, She has operated under the assumption that she is the undisputed queen of the boardroom, a leader whose decisions are final and whose authority is unquestionable. But Fanny Grayson's cold rejection serves as a brutal wake-up call. It exposes the fatal flaw in Steffy's leadership style, her reliance on arrogance and intimidation rather than genuine partnership and respect. The realization that international partners are willing to look past the Forrester legacy to align themselves with the hungry, audacious energy of the Logan brand is a terrifying prospect for the established CEO. The glittering skyline of Los Angeles has always been a backdrop for relentless ambition, but the shadows it casts are growing darker. Wyatt Spencer's return was supposed to be a triumphant homecoming, a strategic move orchestrated by Bill Spencer to solidify the Logan brand's dominance. Wyatt did not return empty-handed. He brought a flawless replica of the legendary Hope for the future diamond. This magnificent stone was meant to be the ultimate symbol of victory. Yet, as Wyatt placed the velvet box on Bill's desk, his eyes held a chilling apprehension. He delivered a terrifying warning. The diamond, he claimed, carried a dark, ancient curse that promised devastation to anyone who dared to exploit it. Bill Spencer, a man whose ego is as vast as his media empire, reacted exactly as one would expect. He threw his head back and let out a booming, arrogant laugh that echoed off the glass walls. To Bill, curses were nothing more than fairy tales designed to frighten the weak-minded. He viewed the diamond not as a harbinger of doom, but as the ultimate weapon of humiliation. In his megalomaniacal vision, this cursed stone would serve as the dazzling centerpiece for Hope Logan's grand debut at the Logan Fashion House. It was a calculated strike aimed directly at Forrester Creations. Bill wanted to parade the diamond, proving that the Spencer-Logan alliance was an unstoppable force of nature that bowed to no one. While Bill reveled in his toxic hubris, Liam Spencer stood in the periphery, a deep sense of dread pooling in his stomach. Liam has always been the moral compass of the family, relying on logic rather than superstition. But as he looked at the mesmerizing depths of the replica diamond, a primal instinct warned him of impending danger. He knew his father's relentless obsession with crushing Forrester Creations often blinded him to collateral damage. And here, the collateral damage was his beloved wife, Hope. Liam tried to voice his concerns, arguing that parading a notoriously cursed gemstone was a reckless risk. But his desperate pleas fell on deaf ears, drowned out by Bill's roaring ambition and Katie's demands. For Hope Logan, the stakes had never been higher. Having reached her absolute breaking point under Steffy Forrester's condescending leadership, Hope had made the agonizing decision to defect and secretly sign with the Logan brand. The pressure to succeed was a suffocating weight. She had spent grueling, sleepless nights working alongside Deke Sharp, frantically trying to refine his designs after Katie brutally criticized them. Hope was desperate to prove that her vision could thrive without the Forrester name. The upcoming launch, centered around the magnificent diamond, was her one chance to silence her critics and validate her painful betrayal. She pushed herself to exhaustion, completely ignoring the ominous whispers. The night of the grand launch arrived, transforming the Logan Fashion House into a breathtaking spectacle of glitz, glamour, and high-stakes corporate warfare. The red carpet was rolled out, flanked by a sea of flashing cameras and eager journalists hungry for the next scandal. Los Angeles' elite mingled under the warm glow of crystal chandeliers, sipping champagne and whispering about Hope's audacious defection. At the center of the runway, resting on a pedestal of black velvet and illuminated by a blinding spotlight, sat the replica diamond. It radiated an eerie, hypnotic brilliance. To the untrained eye, it was a masterpiece, but to those who knew of Wyatt's chilling warning, it looked like a glowing ember of disaster. As the music swelled, signaling the beginning of the highly anticipated fashion show, an unnatural chill seemed to sweep through the venue. Hope stood backstage, her heart hammering against her ribs, ready to unveil her new empire. But just as the first model stepped onto the pristine runway, the unthinkable happened. The state-of-the-art electrical system, meticulously tested dozens of times, suddenly went haywire. A loud, violent crackle echoed through the massive speakers, followed by a shower of terrifying sparks raining down from the lighting rigs. The upbeat runway music warped into a distorted, demonic screech before cutting out entirely. The audience gasped in collective horror as the PR triumph began to unravel. What followed was a sequence of bizarre, inexplicable disasters that defied all logical explanation. The runway, previously swept and polished to absolute perfection, suddenly became a treacherous hazard. The lead model, a seasoned professional who had walked hundreds of shows without a single misstep, inexplicably lost her footing. Her ankle twisted violently, sending her crashing to the floor in a tangle of expensive fabric. Before the backstage crew could react, a second model emerged, only to have the intricate clasp of her couture gown snap without warning, resulting in a humiliating wardrobe malfunction. Another model tripped over an invisible obstacle, colliding with a lighting stand that came crashing down. Panic erupted within the venue as the situation rapidly deteriorated. The once sophisticated crowd of fashion elites began to murmur in shock and fear, some backing away from the runway, as if the stage itself were infected by a dark plague. Then the final, devastating blow was struck. The entire building suffered a catastrophic power outage, plunging the glamorous event into suffocating, pitch-black darkness. Terrified screams pierced the sudden silence, accompanied by the chaotic sound of shattering glass and frantic footsteps. In the center of the room, amidst the terrifying void, the cursed diamond seemed to catch the faint moonlight filtering through the skylights, glowing with a sinister, mocking luminescence. Liam Spencer, his heart lodged firmly in his throat, fought his way through the panicked crowd in the darkness, his only thought focused on finding his wife. When he finally reached backstage, he found Hope trembling uncontrollably, her pale face illuminated by the harsh, flickering glow of a smartphone flashlight. As Liam held her shaking body, a chilling realization washed over him, freezing the blood in his veins. Wyatt's warning was not a joke, nor was it a myth. The curse was terrifyingly real, and its malevolent energy had been unleashed directly onto Hope's launch. Liam, a man of science and reason, found himself fully believing in the supernatural terror of the diamond, realizing Bill's arrogance had invited a dark entity. By the time the emergency backup generators finally kicked in, the damage was already done, and it was entirely irreversible. The grand PR event had morphed into a catastrophic media nightmare. Journalists, who had been invited to witness the glorious rise of the Logan brand, were now live streaming the absolute carnage to millions of viewers. Social media exploded with viral videos of models falling, lights sparking, and the elite audience fleeing in sheer terror. The headlines wrote themselves, each one more brutal and unforgiving than the last. What was supposed to be a masterstroke of corporate warfare had become a global,